What would you do? A question asked many ways over many years by many people, but only Nickelodeon could ask this question in such an absurd way. So we ask you, what would you do if I told you there was a show that would answer that very question? Well, as it turns out, if you take 1,000 cream pies, Marc and Robin from Double Dare, a live studio audience, a bunch of guest appearances, a handful of weird pie-based contraptions, and put them all in a Nickelodeon blender, well, you're left with another question. What would you do if I asked you to stay tuned to find out? Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to Macabre'Gorium Labs presents School of Boredom, a showcase of things likely forgotten, Nickelodeon edition. My name is Bats, and I'll be your guide today as we discuss a show that flung more pies than the Three Stooges' entire run. This is Lesson N108, What Would You Do? Nickelodeon's Piece of the Pie. What Would You Do is an American Nickelodeon television program that aired from 1991 until 1993 on Nickelodeon. It would run for 2 seasons consisting of a total of 90 episodes. It also heavily relies on pies and gross-out humor along with physical challenges. This show was filmed at the Nickelodeon Studios in Orlando, Florida, and would be hosted by Double Dare's very own Marc Summers with on-stage assistant Robin, who is also from Double Dare. This show was quite unique, messy, and looked like a ton of fun, but there was something about the way that Marc presented the show that just seemed a little off to us. And we'll get into that in just a minute, but for now, let's see what this show was all about. So this show was filmed with a live studio audience. However, they weren't just in the background to offer up oohs and ahs and canned laughter. Nope, they were an important and prominent part of the program. In fact, Marc would start the show by explaining the vague premise of the program, and then address the audience, select a family or member of a family and pull them to the front of the stage, do a quick introduction of said audience members, and then get them in whatever position was needed for the question, what would you do? The now contestants are then faced with a challenge that could be a stunt, question, or task, that more often than not would result in someone getting splattered with some sort of cream pie.
Now these pies were not traditional cream pies with crusts or even pie tins. Instead, at one point, the show just started putting whipped cream on styrofoam plates. And this had become the go-to for the show's cream pies. I assume this was for safety and waste reasons.
And this show was all over the place with its premise, and I'm sure we didn't cover everything, but let's look at what we did cover. This program had a bunch of eating challenges. I specifically remembered the one with the Celebrity Leftovers challenge from when I was a kid. And this is one where people were asked if they would eat leftovers of a celebrity. Just the thought of that alone kind of grosses me out. There were some eating challenges that were not as gross, such as the would you rather eat an apple or an apple pie, where the contestant was given the choice to either eat an apple and or an apple pie, but they could not use their hands and the apple was in a barrel of ice water. Some of the other challenges for this show included tasks, such as an audience member going out into public to ask a random person to get into the pie pod, faux presentations of public taste tests, cleaning a dirty window with your butt, learn a skill and attempt it, pick a disguised relative out of a lineup, and various other contest-like challenges.
Now, as luck would have it, there were too many tropes on the show to mention in one video.
However, if this video gets enough traction, we could do a spotlight on the various prizes and different contests throughout the program. I suppose you might be wondering at this point why I keep referring to the audience as contestants. And that's because while more often than not on normal shows, winning means getting a prize. However, this show offered something a little different. You see, the quote winners of these challenges would either get pied or sometimes they would be given an option of receiving a token for the wall of stuff. First, let's talk about the pies. Oh, so many pies in so many different ways. Let's check them out now. This show used pies and being pied as both a reward and a punishment. When a contestant was a kid, they would more often than not have the opportunity to put adult in jeopardy of being pied. The most famous delivery method for this on this show was the iconic pie pod. This was a chair that the victim would sit in, and the remaining audience would be asked if the person in the chair would be hit with 1, 2, 3, or 4 pies. And if you haven't guessed yet, it was usually 4 pies. Sometimes there was a bucket of goop stationed on top the device that would be activated by pulling a rope, dropping it onto the pie pod victim.
Double pie pod designed by an award-winning team of kid scientists from the University of Nickelodeon. It is armed with not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 pies, poised and ready to blast off. A specially designed hydraulic lift chair moves the intended person into position. And as if 4 pies weren't enough, to top it all off, feast your eyes on the crowning glory, rigged to unload a container of pie filling at the slightest touch. And the one and only place where you'll find the incredible pie pod is right here on What Would You Do? Back to you, Mark.
However, that wasn't the only way they flung pie. Not by a long shot. They also had many other contraptions, and sometimes just a good old-fashioned pie to the face. The point is, this show flung pies.
Keep right on nicking.
If you want to check out Nickelodeon's What Would You Do for yourselves, you can find full episodes right here on YouTube, thanks to Patty. Link in the description, and you can find her right here at this. And check it out.
Now back to What Would You Do?
Oh, you didn't think we were going to gloss over all the pie contraptions, did you? This is School of Boredom, not public school. We deliver what we can, not what we have to. So we already discussed the pie pod, but what else did this show offer in the manner of pie? We had the pie slide.
The pie slide, calibrated precisely at a 45-degree angle. It sends the slider on a direct, non-stop course into this, the mother of all pies. A giant pie with a diameter of 8 feet and a depth of 25 inches. And weighing in at 475 pounds, 6 ounces, it takes over 9 hours to make each one. All that and a flaky crust just like Mom used to make, except way bigger. It is considered the ultimate privilege to ride the pie slide. And the one and only place to find the fabulous pie slide is right here on What Would You Do?
This was a small slide that led to a very large 8-foot diameter cream pie. Very similar to Double Dare stunts, this pie even came with a large cherry on top. The contestant would have to go down the pie slide head first. Next up, we had the Pie-mobile.
Fun, and it's a Pie-mobile, and the reason it's a Pie-mobile, we'll explain in a minute, but who would like to be the very first person to ride into this? Do you have any reason to wonder in your own mind what a Pie-mobile is for? A demonstration, first time ever on What Would You Do of the Pie-mobile. Grab a pie right over there. So as he drives through, your job is to hit him with as many pies as you can, folks, all right?
The Pie-mobile was a Power Wheels style electric kids car where the contestant, kid or adult, would have to drive around the stage while several pies would be given to the audience, and the contestant would then have pies thrown at them for a select time limit. They had the Pie Wash. This was similar to the Pie Pod. It was a chair with a twist. No, literally, it spins around. And while it is spinning, several tubes would dispense cream pie filling all over the contestant that was seated in the device. From time to time, contestants might get the chance to ride the Pie Coaster. This was a roller coaster that had a single one-person car on a very short track. The person riding the car would be sent down the track through 3 paper banners that say, "What would you and do?" Then they would finally collide at the end with a giant vertical cream pie. Then they had the Pie Pendulum.
We have talked about the Pie Pod, the Pie Slide. We've talked about all sorts of interesting devices, but I would like to introduce you now to our newest device to get a pie. Ladies and gentlemen, please, the Pie Pendulum. I
would love to demonstrate how this works.
This was a weird device where the person being pied would be strapped onto a board face down with their face sticking out from the top and asked questions. Failure to answer the questions correctly or at all would result in the board being lowered down gradually. The twist here is that they're being lowered into a, you guessed it, cream pie. And there were a handful of other pieing methods used on this program as well, such as the Pieing Squad, which was a firing squad but with pies. There was musical chairs hot potato with a pie. And not to mention...
Matt, if you try to explain all the ways that this show used pies, this video is going to be 6 hours long, and nobody will watch that.
You know, you're right. Let's just say this show loved using pies for everything. Even though most segments on this program ended with some sort of pie-related shenanigans, there was a little more to it than that. Among the many things this show did, it did like its practical jokes, like hidden camera gags, costumes, dancing, games, stunts, silly questions, gross-out humor, and edgy jokes. We'll talk a little bit more about the edginess of this show here before we wrap up, but we have a few more things that it had to offer. The show would often pit 2 or more people against each other in some kind of Double Dare-esque challenge. It really was different for every show. Pretty much anything goes, really.
Now, if the demonstration or stunt was potentially dangerous, Marc Summers would do it instead of an audience member.
I highly suggest you go check out the show for yourselves. I personally watched almost every one of the videos that Patty uploaded for writing this one, and the one thing that I learned is Mark was kind of a stinky. See, this program was fast-paced, and Mark had to think fast while presenting it. Well, what happens when a stand-up comedian hosts a variety game show for kids and families? This happens.
Can you stand over here a minute, sir? Just for a second. I just found this interesting. Right over here. What would you do, audience, if I asked you to wear this outfit? Look at this. This is... Now, it looks like you... I'm not sure what. Now, is this your own idea? A little bit, yeah. Now, you wore the stripes there, and then you have these shorts, and I like the sparkly... Yeah, what do you do for a living, sir?
I'm a chemical operator.
A chemical operator. All right, sit down. I'm sure that you are some adult there. Let me see. Do I see some guy there in a big, ugly white hat there? Yeah, go to him. Try that guy. Let me hear you.
Hi, would you like to be on Nickelodeon's iPad?
Ask him what country he's from.
What country are you from?
I am from Sweden.
From Sweden? Oh, good. Well, tell him it's a little tradition we do to welcome people to the United States, okay?
Yeah, it seems like he was kind of rude and somewhat insulting to the guests, but that's a story for another video, or maybe a spotlight. Time will tell. In an unrelated event, Robin would only be Mark's assistant for Season 1. This was according to the wiki, per Marc Summers, due to a pay dispute. However, she did continue to work on the Double Dare series for the rest of its run. After Season 1, Robin's role of assistant would go to a child audience member whom would get the chance to basically become free child labor under the guise of being a special guest. Toward the end of each episode, more often than not, they would do the What Would You Do medley, where a small handful of people would be selected to come down to the stage and have a card taped to their forehead. And they would be given the option to do whatever the card says, or go to the pie pod. Some of the things the cards would say here were hidden talent, hold an animal or insect, eat something gross. I distinctly remember pig's feet and pudding being an option. Needless to say, she chose the pie pod instead. Feeding animals or doing something weird or gross. Again, with this show, the variety is literally endless. And finally, throughout the show, sometimes the contestants would be given tokens for participating in the show. These coveted tokens were the show's prize system, although more often than not, they would not have time to complete this part. But regardless, here's how it was supposed to work. The person or people with the tokens would approach the prize wall one at a time and pick one of 20 doors on the prize wall. But this was also as risky as the rest of the show. Sometimes the token holder might get a What Would You Do wristwatch, water bottle, t-shirt, duffel bag, or hat. However, they could also get gooped by pie filling or a straight up pie to the face. At the end of the day, this show was a ton of fun, albeit a little risque, and I'm sure that it left many memories with those fortunate enough to be included. Before we wrap up, I'm asking you, were you ever a guest on this show, or what your favorite memories from it were? As well as tell you that you can leave those comments and suggestions for future videos in the comments below. And with that, we've come to the end of another School of Boredom Nickelodeon Edition lesson. My name is Bats, and this has been Lesson N108. What would you do? Nickelodeon's piece of the pie. Be sure to check back next time because you never know what we have in store. And as usual, think for yourselves, be excellent to each other, and of course, keep it creepy. What would you do?
What would you do?
Hey, thanks for checking out our video. If you enjoyed this one and would like to see more of our weird, creepy, odd, eccentric, or strange content as soon as it comes out, please feel free to click like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more. We'll see you later. Keep it creepy.